Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our latest Ask the Leaders Facebook Live Q&A. My name is Darryl Smalley and I'm the Exec Member for Culture, Leisure and Communities at City of York Council. Today, we're delighted to be joined by representatives from the City's colleges, skills and learning support services to discuss educational options for young people approaching the end of their secondary school education. We'll be taking your questions from a wide range of topics relevant to anyone planning their post-16 options ahead of September 2021. Including places offering post-16 training and education in York, vocational qualifications, T-levels, apprenticeships and much more. Before I go on and let the panel introduce themselves, I'd just like to take a quick minute to highlight the ongoing work of the education team here at the council, as well as many teachers and school staff across York. By lucky coincidence, today is Thank a Teacher Day, so I'd just like to reiterate all our thanks to teachers, teaching assistants, school staff and all those in providing exceptional support to children and young people, despite the many challenges that the past year and a bit has brought everyone. Our school education staff, caretakers, teachers, teaching assistants and governors, and many other people besides, continue to do a fantastic job in incredibly difficult and unusual circumstances, prioritising the health, safety and well-being of pupils and staff. And we're always immensely proud of the support they continue to give pupils. So although we all know that the last year has been really difficult for many young people, it's important that we look ahead and start to plan for the future. Whilst there are a few more months until the start of the autumn term, I hope that tonight our expert panel will be able to guide young people through a wide range of post-16 options available locally, as well as answer any specific questions you might have. I'll just stop there quickly and ask the panel to introduce themselves. I'm not picking favourites, I'm just going around in the order you are on my screen. So if we could start, if you just say your name and who you're here representing, and starting with Bob.
Bob Watmore. I work for the City of York Council as a skills advisor, with my particular specialism being associated with apprenticeships. Normally at this time of year, I would probably be attending physical events in schools, talking directly to students and to teachers about the apprenticeship opportunities within the city. Brilliant,
thanks Bob. Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura Pulleyn and I work for York-based IT firm Boxxe. My role here is community partners, that's developing our relationships with local organisations and charities and how we can support the wider York community.
Brilliant, thank you Laura. Ian?
Hi, I'm Councillor Ian Cuthbertson. I'm the member for Children, Education and Young People on City of York Council.
Brilliant, thank you ever so much, Ian.
And can I echo what Darryl has just had to say about thanking teachers?
Okay, thank you, Ian. And Liam?
Hello, I'm Liam from the Revel Business School. So I am a content presenter and events organizer for a national training company. So mostly I'm normally teaching people in tense ways how to start up businesses based on their passions.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Liam. Glyn?
Sorry about that, just taking myself off mute. I'm Glyn Jones, I'm Vice Principal at York College, responsible for academic and applied education, which covers the great majority of our full-time 16 to 18 studies.
Brilliant, thank you so much, Glyn. And last but certainly not least, John.
John Thompson. I work for City of York Council as Head of Secondary and Skills. So my role includes ensuring that young people progress well through our secondary schools up to the age of 16, transition to productive destinations at 16 when they continue in education, training and employment, and then also a lot of them subsequently at 18 and 19 to their next destinations after college, school sixth form, and finally for some young people with special educational needs and disabilities up to the age of 25, moving into adult life.
That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much, John. And you're the only John on the call today. I think was it last time we had multiple Johns and it all got confusing. But thank you so much, John. For those that haven't watched our Facebook Live Q&As before, we have some wider conversation topics highlighted for discussion, and we'll start by answering those. But please don't forget to ask a question, and if you just comment live on Facebook, then the brilliant comms team at the council will feed them to us and we'll be able to answer them live. And of course, you can ask questions that aren't strictly to do with post-16 education and school options. I think on the last one of these, we had questions about road closures, and we'll endeavour to answer any question that's to do with the city, council, or anything that's we can reasonably try and answer. So we'll start off, and I guess this is probably towards Bob, but if the panelists do want to come in on any of the questions at all, just wave your hand and I'll try and bring you in. And so the pre-submitted question is, what are the benefits of apprenticeships and traineeships, and what career paths can they help with? So incredibly broad, but over to you, Bob.
Well, the fundamental benefit of an apprenticeship is that you are an employee of the business that has employed you, contractually employed. So you're starting your career, you're paid for all of the work that you're undertaking in that employment situation. For those post-16, between 16 and 18, I'm sure John will come in, there's a requirement to still be in an educational programme. So an apprenticeship model fits perfectly, that you're still progressing with an educational programme whilst on an apprenticeship. And this is supported by what are commonly called training providers. Obviously, York College is a form of a training provider. Multiple training providers that will support the programme of development that you're undertaking whilst in employment. And thankfully now we have apprenticeships covering every field of employment within the UK, and providers that can also provide for that. Now, we don't have every type of employment in and around York, but those sectors of employment in York that are the core part of destinations for employment in York, there are most definitely providers that cover those aspects. And I'll probably come back in later and talk about the current level of vacancies for these employed apprentices within York and the kind of sectors that they cover. John might want to cover more about what this means for post-16 students in terms of their destinations.
John, would you like to?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, Bob's our expert specifically on apprenticeships. And, you know, as I said, when I introduced myself, we've got people leaving school at 16 and going on to other courses and opportunities. The requirement on young people is that they stay in education and training until their 18th birthday. And so then we usually get a rash of people, quotes, leaving at the ages of 18 and 19 in particular, but we do get some 17-year-olds as well. So school leaving is not a fixed thing that happens at the end of year 11 when you're 16 and you all go off to the prom and that's it. That used to be the case. Of course, this year you aren't going off to the prom because of the pandemic in any case, but yeah, so it's kind of a phased thing. And the majority of our 16-year-olds will continue in education and training, mostly either at colleges or in schools. Some will do apprenticeships. We find statistically in York that employers tend to take on more 17 and 18-year-olds than they do 16-year-olds. And we have a very small number who want to go straight into employment, and technically that shouldn't be an option, but there's always a very small number who do that. And then there are some people who, for various reasons, are not able to participate in education and training straight away. Usually something around their health will be preventing them, and that's a small minority. So we've got, you know, 5 big school sixth forms in York. We've got 2 fantastic colleges at York College, which offers a broad range of provision. And we've got Askham Bryan College, which is a specialist land-based college offering a whole range of opportunities linked to that particular area of the economy. And then we've got training providers who operate in York, some who are based in York and others who are national training providers who work with various of the companies who are in York, because we have lots and lots of local York small based employers, but we also have big national employers in fields like retail, some of the obvious other big names in York, people like Aviva, Nestle, Portakabin, and some of the construction companies, and they may well be using a national training provider rather than a local one because they've got business all over the country. I mean, an example would be, a big recent opening in York has been the Malmaison Hotel. Well, they'll be taking on people across their business all over the country, and they've probably already got a training provider that they use rather than pick up a local one. But that's the kind of scenario. Then at 18, when people leave, or 18 or 19 when they leave sixth forms, just under half of them will probably go on to university, into a higher education institution, and the rest then will be looking for employment or apprenticeship, or some locally based higher education as well. So we've got kind of a whole load of activity that takes place over a 2 or 3 year period, and it's not a fixed point. People do not leave school like they did 50 years ago, 60 years ago. They move to the next stage.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, John. And Glyn.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, really, just following on from what John was saying there. If for somebody who's at the moment contemplating whether to stay on at school or consider an apprenticeship, or someone whose son or daughter is exploring this, I'd say a couple of things to add on top of what Bob and John have said. The first one is that apprenticeships exist in a much wider range of fields than they used to. So areas where you might not have imagined apprenticeships exist probably have them. So areas that, for example, digital technologies and in science and areas like that. And the other point I'd make, which John alluded to, is that there's a whole ladder of levels. So if somebody goes into an apprenticeship, they can progress on to higher level apprenticeships, degree level apprenticeships. So people can progress within their place of employment and occupy the kind of roles that would normally be people would expect you to be a graduate to occupy. And the beauty, as Bob says, is of course you're earning all the way along the line.
That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Glyn. Sticking with the broad theme of training and qualifications, I guess almost back to you, Glyn. I guess what are the benefits of attending and gaining qualifications through colleges? I guess compared to sixth forms, and what career paths can they help with?
Well, what I promise I won't do is take you through the entire course guide that we've got, but it depends very much on the kind of courses you're looking at. I mean, we're the largest A-level provider in the city. We've got over 1,000 A-level students, so that gives you a very wide range of subjects which are available in virtually any combination. But the likelihood is that most people are also very interested in understanding about vocational qualifications as well. Most of our vocational qualifications are the equivalent of 3 A-levels there. So the idea is that if somebody wants to come along and study to be a hairdresser, to be a plumber, to be a software designer, to be a sports coach, then that's the path that we're helping prepare them for. We do a lot of work with employers. So I think one of the things which characterizes a lot of what we do is that it's very much informed by our relationships with employers, and that can influence the way we teach, the order we teach things in, and in some cases the very course that we teach from the word go. And the other thing is that it's a very different atmosphere. We'd like to think of ourselves as a stepping stone between a school environment and a workplace or a university. So it's a more adult environment. And we with 16-year-olds, we always say we will treat you like an adult until you stop behaving like one. And the vast majority of people carry on behaving like one. So it's a very different experience.
The council should have a similar motto, I think. Yeah, thank you so much. And this is, I guess, sticking again with the theme, and potentially Liam and Laura might want to come in on this one. I guess this is after gaining apprenticeships or going to college. I guess what very broad question, but what career paths are available after completing those? I don't know who would like to come in.
I'm
Laura.
happy to go. So obviously, I guess it really does depend on the apprenticeship programme that you've undertaken. As we've previously said, there's such a vast and varied wealth of opportunities now with apprenticeships. Speaking on behalf of Boxxe, we've had a number of cohorts of apprenticeships. They've led to roles such as myself. I took a business admin apprenticeship. I moved around the operational roles in the company so I could best find my fit. Worked within the procurement team for a year and a half, and now I've moved into the role of community partner. We've also got people who've moved into be a Microsoft operations specialist, service desk analyst, people who've done apprenticeships in infrastructure, sales account managers, sales administration. So even within just the one business, we've had a real variety of career paths followed by our apprenticeship program. So
that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Laura. Liam and then Bob.
Wonderful stuff. Just to build on Laura's point as well, is that when you're in these kind of apprenticeship roles, when you're studying underneath someone who's got years of experience in the field and is a fantastic mentor, you're going to pick up in-job skills, you're going to pick up real life experience, and there might be situations where you can progress up the ladder of that career with that company, or there might be other opportunities to take those skills freelance. A lot of companies these days might contract someone in if they don't have a full-time position for it, or it might suit you and your lifestyle to actually build this in and go, why just work for the one individual when I've been studying graphics design for 3 years? How about I have a portfolio of clientele? I have a handful of different businesses I work with around town that work that way. And I guess my other thought on this too is it kind of builds on the back of what Glyn was saying, is that with certain qualifications, if you're studying in one of those triple qualifications for maybe hairdressing, plumbing, some of the more vocational skills that Glyn was talking about, a large percentage of that industry falls under self-employed technically. So it's something to explore, it's something to look into, that you've got two options here. Whether you're in an apprenticeship, whether you're studying further, you can take this leap, you can take this knowledge and go, actually, I've got an opportunity to both climb a ladder within a company and make some real strong progress, but also if things aren't looking so great that way, I also have an opportunity to mold my own path, to start your own business, and to actually have a little bit of freedom of that too. So don't feel that you're just restricted to one avenue. You actually have a lot more freedom than you think, and you've got some real strong potentials there looking forwards.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Liam. Bob.
Yeah, it's pretty much just echoing what's just been said, but obviously in my role, and as I said earlier, I would probably come back to this and give a view. We're fortunate in York in a lot of ways, in that we have an incredibly broad range of employment across the city. But sometimes that, I hear it a lot when I go to the schools, that causes some confusion because they're looking around for the big employers with lots of employment. And John mentioned a few of those that we know within the city that do, the Avivas, the Nestle's, the Porter Cabins. But actually the strength of York is this enormously broad and every sector opportunity. And Liam's quite right. We have quite an entrepreneurial city. So we have quite a lot of business startup. And my job role particularly is to work with businesses, and I've done it today, where there are less than 5 employees. I've just helped a business advertise their apprenticeship vacancy that's online right now. That it's his first employee. It's him now plus the apprentice. So I find it both rewarding to give advice that the sectors are so broad, but also I can understand it seems confusing at times because people are looking for, yeah, well, where are the big numbers of jobs? Well, actually, the big numbers of jobs are be as broad as possible in terms of your outlook. And post 16, particularly, as John was saying, and we have to keep in a form of education generally appeals to what's called an intermediate level 2 apprentice, the starting rung of a career. And if I just read from my other screen as to what's available right now in York: joinery, chef, business administration in all sorts of businesses, including accountancy, some machine manufacturing roles, quite a few in terms of hospitality that we would expect, bar and waiting staff, sales, a welder, hairdressing, and I've only gone down about 2 pages of the current vacancies. So it's not easy to say exactly where the jobs are, because actually the jobs are in an incredibly broad area. But that gives the young people of York actually a good opportunity to think more about, as Liam was saying, what they would want to do, and maybe the start of their career, and particularly those that might support ultimately entrepreneurial self-employment within the city, which is a big part of the city. We have a lot in what we call professional services: accountancy, solicitors, legal, HR support of small businesses because they can't carry their own HR support. So we've got a lot in the professional services, and a lot in very, very small businesses that are looking to take new staff in and can take them in and start that journey as apprenticeships.
That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Bob. John.
Couple of quick things. It's really good that we've got people able to speak with authority on the range of opportunities for employment. If people want to know a little bit more about the economic sectors in York and the dominant employment sectors, the larger sectors, then we publish a guide for year 11 students every year in the autumn, and it's available on the web. And I'm asking the brilliant communications team to put up the link to that guide on the Facebook page before the end of the Q&A. And the second thing is, going back to the start of the question, which was with Glyn at the college and the range of qualifications. I just think that the young people in it, we keep saying all the way through these inputs that, young people in York are very fortunate. Well, when it comes to a range of post-16 education, they genuinely are. Okay, and that is not just about the breadth of it and the range, with 5 school 6 forms, which, as Glyn says, will predominantly be A-level qualifications, although there's one at Archbishop Holgate's that does a bit more vocational stuff, a general FE provider which covers a huge range of stuff, a specialist college, etc., etc., etc. But the facts are that there are very few places in the country where a local area of this size has a system which delivers so much and so much successfully. The quality of the outcomes, the results are much better than you will find in almost all places in this country, and certainly in the north of England.
Very inspiring message, John, and lots of nods. So thank you ever so much. On next, sticking with the broad theme of apprenticeships, and I guess a question really to Glyn, John, and anyone else who wants to come in on this one is: can students expect more flexibility in regards to the grades they require for college or apprenticeships, in particular with a mind on the disruption caused by COVID-19? I don't know who would like to jump in.
If I start, and I'll hand over to Glyn, who can give the York College view more specifically. I think the first thing that everybody needs to understand is that every year, whether there's a pandemic or not, there will be people who will be disappointed by their results. They won't have got what they wanted. Okay, so the first thing is, it always happens, and there are also various reasons for that. Quite often, we don't get the grades that we wanted or aspired to because we didn't do the work that we needed to do to get them. Is the fact of the matter. Okay, so let's set that aside and actually look at the pandemic situation. Yeah, it's been exceptionally difficult. The current students in year 11 and those who are taking their higher level qualifications have had two years of significant disruption. This year they've been back since the beginning of March, effectively, through to the May half term. And there's a system being set up by the government which is using a lot of centre-based assessment and a combination of work by the tutors and teachers in colleges and schools to come up with grades. Those grades all have to be based on evidence. So that's things that you've actually done and have been assessed. So, I can tell you, because I've been talking to school and college leaders over the last 3 to 4 months, that a huge amount of work has gone into that to give people every opportunity, that's the students, the chance to provide the evidence. In other words, to do assessed pieces of work so that there is evidence to show what they can do and justify the grades. And I don't think we can honestly say, that schools and teachers and colleges and tutors haven't approached that with a high degree of professionalism, because they have. And I think they will have also been explaining, I know they've been explaining to students, why they're doing what they're doing and what those students need to do well. So I'd hope there will be very few people who will be surprised by what they get when their grades are awarded, because I know that schools have been talking to them about what they've produced and the kind of level it's at, and most students, if they've been listening, will have a pretty good idea of what they're going to get at the end of the day. And I also know that our colleagues in the schools and colleges have already submitted those grades to the awarding bodies in the last few days, and are now being asked in some cases to provide evidence that they're correct. So there's a moderation and a regulatory check going on around that. But because those grades have already gone in, the schools and colleges have got a pretty good idea about who it is in their cohorts that are not going to get the grades that are going to secure their progression plan. There will be kids, there always are, who don't get the grades they need to go to their university first choice. There will be kids who aren't going to get the qualification level that they need to go on to their choice post 16, because there are requirements around grades. And what we can say is that, I know because I've been talking to them this week, that schools and colleges have already tried to help people with Plan B, and ensure that people haven't put all of their hopes and dreams in one particular place, and have looked at a variety of alternatives. And I also know that when those grades are announced to students at the end of the whole process, that schools and colleges will be there to help those students who haven't got what they aspired to or what they hoped, and to help them find an alternative progression route. Glyn, how's it playing out at the college?
Well, I think, and I agree with everything that John said, in terms of where these teacher assessed grades, or the tags as everyone's calling them in schools and colleges, where they come from. And I think the key thing to understand about these is that schools and colleges are doing everything they can to ensure that these are fair judgments based on what the students have covered. We receive students from up to somewhere between 50 and 100 schools, because our catchment area goes quite a long way beyond York. And so the experience that students have got and the level of disruption they've had is going to vary quite considerably. What that means then is not that some people will have unfairly higher or better grades. The grading should be consistent in terms of its fairness, because of the way the system is set up. But what that does mean is that some people will have bigger gaps in their actual learning than others, because of what they've missed due to COVID. And in fairness, there is a recognition of this, and there's a government will and effort to try and identify how we go through this COVID recovery. And I think that's the most important thing for us to start at an institutional level, to start thinking about, well, what are we going to do as a response to this? John's quite right in that, well, every year we have conversations with people where we might say, for example, well, I know you wanted to become a hairdresser and you're going to become a hairdresser, but we might take a year longer than you'd originally hoped to get you to where you want to be and where you can actually go and take up that kind of role out there. What we're going to be doing is we're going to have a more flexible start to the beginning of the year. We will still be having the same set of entry requirements on courses, and we will be continuing to apply those. But what we will be doing in the first few weeks of particularly of our vocational courses is doing a lot of assessments, a lot of diagnostic. It doesn't mean we'll give people lots of tests, but we'll get to know students a lot better. In a much more thorough and skills-based way, and try to get an idea and help the students to get a clearer idea of whether they're on the right course, whether they're on the right pathway anyway, because one of the other things we also know is that students will have had less in the way of information, advice and guidance available to them than they would have in a normal year. And it gives us an opportunity to, with the student, look at it and say, well, actually, yeah, I think you're on the right track. Yes, you might be actually able to go on a course which is a bit more advanced than your grades suggested, or maybe looking at this, I think you're going to be far more successful if we give you an extra year in order to get you where you want to be. So I hope that's a reassuring question. As John says, we come across this sort of thing every year, COVID or not, but and I hope you're reassured, but and I'm sure this, because I was in some of the same meetings that John was, I'm very confident that all of our post-16 institutions will be taking the same sort of approach to try and make sure that they manage that transition and that filling in the gaps in people's learning that have happened over COVID in a way that supports young people.
And thank you ever so much, Glyn, and hopefully, like you say, that provides reassurance. Laura.
Yeah, just to kind of jump in and maybe give a bit of reassurance from the perspective of an employer. Back to obviously the apprenticeship route, whenever we've had our apprenticeship cohorts, people have always come from a really diverse academic background. So when we're looking to fill those positions, we don't just look at the skills people have or like a set academic profile. We look at other qualities such as the drive of an individual, their enthusiasm to be in the industry. So we do look at a range of qualities that people have, as well as that academic profile that people may be particularly concerned about this year. So that's not necessarily something that will hold people back. There's other things we would look at, like training that people have taken on their own initiative, whether that's something as basic as YouTube learning around the industry, joining forums, blogs, reading around the industry. There are lots of other attributes to a person as well as that academic profile. That's obviously for some roles necessary, but whenever we've taken on a cohort of apprenticeships, the experience and academic level has been extremely varied. So I don't know whether that would offer reassurance to people who might be concerned that they've not achieve those grades that they would want to do. When we're looking to employ, there's a whole range of attributes and skills that go into that, as well as the qualifications, and we're there to support and invest in that individual and help them learn and get where they need to be to follow the career path they're interested in. So we're there for that supporting role as well.
Brilliant, thank you very so much, Laura. Thumbs up as well, clapping. This is all going very well. Thank you very so much, everyone, for that. Those are great answers to that question. To a sort of more procedural question, I guess, and whoever wants to answer this one, is how long do different courses and apprenticeships last? So quite a sort of a non-COVID-y question, if anyone wants to jump in on this. John?
Yeah, just in general, I mean, I think, you know, that people will gather from the discussion that we've had earlier that, I mean, it's not quite how long is a piece of string, but it's how do you, you know, how far do you want to take it in terms of a progression? Okay, so you know, if we're honest about it, the vast majority of programs that people go on to at A level or equivalent at the age of 16 will be 2-year programs. That's how they're set up. Okay. Pre-level 3, they'll almost that level 3 is A-level equivalent. I apologise for my lapse into jargon there. Below that level, then most of the courses will likely be 1 year. But as Glyn says, if you want to do a particular study in a particular area and you haven't quite got there, then you might do 1 year to get there and then do the 2 years. So that would be 3 years. You might start your apprenticeship, as Bob says, at intermediate level when you're 17 or 18, and that might take you a year, and then you might move on to an advanced apprenticeship, which might take you a couple of years. And then if you're good and your business are really keen to take you to the next level, you might do a higher apprenticeship, which might take you another 2 or 3 years. So, the ladder is there, and you can compare that academically, with young people who are doing A-levels for 2 years and going off to university for 3 and things like that. So there are very many young people who will be still engaged in some kind of learning and some kind of progression in terms of their training and education for 5, 6, 7 years after what was the school leaving age of 16 back in the day. Okay. Educational bores like me tend to talk a great deal about lifelong learning and taking opportunities at different stages of your life. And that's very much a theme. You never can stop learning. And we live in a funny old world. We're going through a huge amount of change at the moment as a result of the pandemic, and businesses and schools and colleges, everything will be different in some respects following it. So there will be changes, and those are new opportunities, new training programs. And our parents, probably my parents, had one job, did the same job all the time they were working. I've been working for 38 years. I think I've had 9 jobs, which have split into sort of 2 phases. Once when I was teaching, and then when I wasn't teaching and I was moving into a broader education strategy role and things like that. But I've had a career in education. Now, people move around, they take their skills and they use them in different areas, and they refine them and they adapt them as they go. So, there's this big burst of learning when you're young, but don't forget, you can always come back to it later.
That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much, John. We've got lots of hands up. We'll go Bob, Laura, and then Liam. So over to you, Bob.
Well, fortunately, Darryl, John said most of what I was going to say. After I put my hand up, we have to benefit from lifelong learning now and multiple careers, and being able to change careers. And I think that's why Laura's put her hand up, so I will let her speak. And the fact that as you go through that, learning those new skills, you will get accreditations for learning those new skills, and possibly that can be through multiple levels of apprenticeships to be able to support those careers. And I've done that similar to John. I've had 6 or 7 different jobs, and actually each job has required learning something new. And for most of them, I've completed a course or a qualification or actually an apprenticeship to achieve that change in career. So we're preparing the UK much more now for understanding the need for lifelong learning, and that you can be supported on that journey by retraining and requalification to meet the needs of both your career, but also the employer that you're moving into.
No, thank you ever so much, Bob. Laura.
Hi, just to
there we go.
Sorry, still muted. Just to kind of echo what John and Bob have both said, I think it's important to remember that there is flexibility with the apprenticeships. You have a little bit more control than maybe you feel like you would have done it in a school environment. You work with your employer to kind of find your fit, do it within your own time. You manage to fit that workload within your life and the work experience that you're gaining. When I look at my personal experience and my colleagues' experiences with apprenticeships, I found the department I wanted to work in relatively quickly, so I was able to tailor my apprenticeship to that career direction and fulfill that quite quickly. A colleague of mine took a longer period of time to go through their apprenticeship because they worked with our employer and moved around the operational teams till they found their fit. So you do kind of have that control and influence as well. It's kind of a two-way street rather than that in-school learning where you don't have control over the duration of time it takes you. So I know that can be a concern that people maybe don't want to be tied in, or they're not sure about how flexible it is. And again, we have apprenticeships as something that we use to upskill our staff throughout their career journey as well. So again, similar to what John and Bob said, it's not that lifelong learning element is there. You can always pick something up if you decide to change direction with your careers later on. So
brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Laura. Liam.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm just going to give my, I guess, private training spin on things and just kind of add a little bit on the side there, and just how earlier on Laura was saying about how companies and organisations, especially the wealth of small businesses you have in York, will be both looking at your qualifications, but also your personal attributes too, what else you've learned, what else you've studied. I guess I just want to remind anyone that's watching that there is a huge, vast majority of additional training and support you can actually opt in for yourself. And I don't just mean us. I mean, our courses are intense 2-week courses. We do Monday to Friday for 2 weeks. Like that's, if you went, I need to top up my learning, I want to learn something new, I've got this hunger to progress. There's so much out there that you can go, I've got my apprenticeship, but actually on the side, I could bolt on this extra skill. And it's not just people hiring that are going to pay attention to that, but also if you've already got an apprenticeship, I'm sure those that you're working for would notice the fact that you're extra studying, you're learning new skills. I mean, the fact you've got so many small businesses in York, as somebody that works for a company of less than 10, I can tell you this, the opportunity to fan out and progress, it's there. Like, they always need hands with extra jobs, extra parts of the business. There's always stuff to do. So if you decide that, oh, I'd actually really like to learn the finance role of it, alongside your apprenticeship, I'm sure that whoever you're working for would be more than happy to figure out some kind of training, some kind of extra support to get you into that role and to help you find the department you want to work in. As I mean, Laura said she found hers very quickly. I wasn't so fortunate. I came into project management and now I'm a presenter, I'm a teacher. So there is opportunity to move. There's extra stuff you can dip into. You just have to look for it and know where it is.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Liam. Glyn.
Just adding something a little.
Oh, you just hopped onto mute for a second then. There we go.
There we go. Is that better? Sorry about that. One of the things we experience every year is people who would really like, who are very interested in an apprenticeship, but struggle to find an employer. And John mentioned earlier that there tend to be rather more people employed as apprentices at 17 or 18 than at 16. So I think it's a kind of appropriate at this point to flag up that this is something that often confronts young people, and it's probably worse this year than it has been for quite a few years, bearing in mind the aftermath of COVID. So I think what I would also like to do is to flag up that if your plan A is that you'd like to do an apprenticeship and you struggle to find one, that there are still some opportunities for you. The most obvious one is to try and come and do a vocational course, which will be a preparation for apprenticeship. So it could be that at the age of 17, you're then more employable as an apprentice, particularly given the perhaps the 1 year of maybe level 3 education that you've had. Most of the vocational courses that we offer, and this is probably true of where you can find them elsewhere, you can leave at the end of the first year with a qualification. You'll have a smaller qualification than you would have at the end of 2 years, but it's modularized in such a way that you can do that. So and in some cases that even saves you some of the theory content that forms part of your apprenticeship. So that makes you a little bit more attractive as an apprentice, because you already know some of that stuff. The other thing to consider is T-levels. Now, T-levels are only, I'm amazed that we've got 3/4 of the way through this session and I haven't mentioned T-levels. But T-levels are a new kind of course, but they're only available in 4 areas starting in 2021. So that's in digital, in early years, in construction, and in health. But as we go forward, they're going to be by about 2025, they'll be in pretty much every area. They're almost like they're the opposite way round to an apprenticeship. And in an apprenticeship, it's 4 days in work and 1 day in college, and it's kind of the other way round for a T-level. So you've 45 days of placement, but you've also got your college time making up the majority of that. You're not employed, but it is very much centered around preparing you for employment, although they do give you an opportunity to progress to university as well, if that's something you decide you want to do. So if you are keen on an apprenticeship and you struggle to find one, have a serious look at some of these plan Bs that you might have. They might even become a plan A if you have a good look and decide that they're actually maybe the best thing for you.
Yes, no, thank you, Glyn. And you mentioned plans. I mean, I was probably onto my 5th plan by the time I ended up in York doing the things I'm doing now. So yes, I agree that actually there's always plenty of opportunities. I was going to say as well, we touched on lifelong learning, and if parents are watching this and have been inspired, there's also, and they're not represented here today, but York Learning, who are York's leading provider of family learning through to community learning, through to anything and everything really that you might want to, from sewing to photography to to maths and IT skills. Do have a look there, and I'm sure we can pop that in the chat. I guess on the subject of changing careers. And getting new skills. I wondered if Ian, would you like to come in and give your own experience in that?
Yes, I would. And okay, it's a fair time ago, but it's of application now. So I left school with A levels, and my experience in employment while I was at school was to work in a bakery during the summer and the Christmas holidays. Oh, and at Easter too. So if you want a hot cross bun making, I can do that for you. If you want vanilla slices making, I can do that for you, but not quite with the same machinery that they have in the bakery. When I left school, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do, none whatsoever. And so I went to work in Morrison's supermarket, their very first store before it became a supermarket. It was what we call a box shifter or a discounter. And Ken Morrison, who died a couple of years ago, was actually starting up his supermarket in Bradford at that time. I didn't go on to work in that, but I did do a few months in the small store, putting boxes on their sides and taking the tops off and putting the prices on them. And that was a good experience of a kind. But then I needed to do something more serious about my career. And I went to work for the council for 3 years. Then I moved to the civil service, and after nearly 3 years in the civil service, my boss said to me one day, Ian, I think, I know you're not very happy with us here in London, but I think I know what might be good for you. And he said, it's computers. And I said, well, school's careers master said, don't try that because you need a degree to do it. Well, it turned out you didn't. And that started me. I did some training with them, got some on-the-job training, learning how to program in the language that the machine I first worked on used. And then they sponsored me to do a higher national certificate course because my A levels would get me into that. So I did that for 2 years. Then I did a British Computer Society membership, parts 1 and 2 courses, which were available through evening classes and day release at the time. And that ended me up with membership of the British Computer Society, plus a higher national certificate. And that was basically the equivalent of a degree, a good degree. And that was what started me on and kept me in my career. And so I had a long career in computing. I retired as a software engineer a few years ago, but it was always full of opportunities to learn. I've done more part-time short courses than most people have, and they're all the kind of thing that equip you to do a particular aspect of the work and to move forward in a particular direction. On the way through that, I started my own business, and I ran that for nearly 10 years as a company of people who were working together. And then we hit bad times financially because there've been one or two quite difficult times for small companies in the before the last 20 years anyway. And so I went and worked on my own as an agency worker. And that was really fulfilling. So I worked for big companies, Sainsbury's, Barclays Bank, Dixon's, that kind of company. And then I worked for smaller companies in the area of, mainly in West Yorkshire, where there were textiles and other companies, laboratory equipment makers, that kind of thing. So it did give me access to a very varied career. And I loved every minute of it. But don't be put off by the idea of a degree. You can get in there through a level 1, a level 2, and then a level 3 qualification, or an apprenticeship, or from next year, a T level. So, you know, the future's wide open for you. And it may be that Liam, whose Rebel Business School connections have got something to offer there, might want to add to what I've just been saying. And I know Bob does as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ian. We'll go to Bob first, and then, yeah, just hand over to Liam. So, Bob.
Yeah, it's incumbent upon me to reinforce what I think Glyn and John had already touched on from what Ian has shared. The growth in degree apprenticeships that we are in the middle of now. And actually, this is a kind of on-the-job training that a lot of employers have delivered for many, many years. It was effectively where I started in the 1980s, but it wasn't called it. But now there are a lot of degree apprenticeships, and we're very fortunate that we have employers within the city, particularly some in the rail technology sector. I was just trying to bring up on my other computer because I know that there are some vacancies at the moment in exactly that sector. So maybe not a direct conversation for post-16, but it comes back to this issue about progression and about charting your career out and starting somewhere, but not exactly knowing where you might move through to. And a lot of the good things about the degree apprenticeships is they're linked to the professional qualifications. Ian spoke about the professional qualifications, for example, in computing, but it's exactly the same in the law, in accountancy, for example. If your employer progresses you up to these levels, then you can also, in parallel, achieve your professional qualifications. So it's the flexibility. John mentioned it earlier. It is no longer that there are certain times when everything happens in an early part of a career. Things happen at different times. You may go in a different direction at some point, and then you may come back to it at a different point once you're in employment. But it's been really important to note now that there is a very significant growth of support of employers to undertake academic study at degree level whilst in employment, paid employment as an apprentice.
That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Bob. I think we had Liam and then back to Ian. So over to you, Liam. Thank you.
It helps if I click the button. That's useful. There we go. So yeah, just a couple of thoughts that you sparked when you were talking there. I mean, the first of all, I guess echoes what Bob was just saying, and it's that don't feel disheartened if your first choice isn't what you're pursuing, or actually if what you end up pursuing for the next 3, 5, 10 years or however long, you might end up changing path. I mean, myself, I started my first what I call proper job was as an insurance salesman. I now know it's not what I want to do forever, but at least I took some incredibly valuable learnings from that. And sales is a technique that's paramount through business and paramount through those other factors. So no matter what you end up doing going forwards, just take some reassurance that as long as you give it 100%, you learn from it. If you do have to change direction, you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. And that's just a really important factor to go into that and go, yeah, I've picked up some skills, I've learned some valuable bits in there. yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, firstly, a lot of respect to Ian for his previous life and what he's gone through so far. But there's some wonderful factors of, if you decide self-employment is something you want to even just consider, I will tell you now that, weirdly enough, there has never been a better time to do it. And I genuinely believe that. It's nowhere near as complex as it used to be. There is a huge amount of support out there, and there's just so much you can do. The small devices we carry daily in our pockets that can make more than phone calls have given rocket fuel to countless businesses. There's tools, there's help, there's assistance. I might see if our wonderful geniuses behind the scenes might better put the link to our website as well, because we've got countless free content for you to digest in your own time. We're very much making this accessible for everyone, but there aren't as many barriers as you think to starting. There's so much you can do for free. And if you've got drive, ambition, something you're interested in, and a little bit of effort, you can build your own life that's fantastic. I do believe that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Liam. We had Ian and then Bob, and I'm aware we've only got 4 minutes left before 6:30. That's gone very quickly, hasn't it? But Ian.
Very quickly, 2 things to add. First of all, the employer who employed me for my higher national certificate work, I had a commitment to stay with them until I finished the course, and I respected that. And then on the British Computer Society exams and the training for that, exactly the same commitment. So that was kind of like an apprenticeship, but quite a long time ago. Lastly, when I started the business, I could have very much done with the kind of training that Rebel and other organisations offer, which give you an insight into what you need to do and what you need to do, know, and how to go about it. And so that was extremely useful, really good and worthwhile doing. And if it's free, even better. That's it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ian. And Bob.
Yeah, I wanted to build on what Liam said, but come back to what we said earlier. York has a very significant number of employers who started as self-employed, and it continues to be the case. And it is to our credit that we have a city that's like that. So absolutely endorse what Liam says. And all of a sudden, these businesses are employing 10 people, 50 people, and they become significantly well-known employers within the city. So many that we work with, where we talk to the owners of those businesses, that they started them themselves from, their kitchen table.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Glyn. Oh, is that a legacy hand?
No, it's an original hand. Just wanted to basically reiterate, everyone else has been saying things on this theme. Very, very few careers are a straight line, and to be honest, when you sit back and look back as Ian just has been, a straight line would be a bit dull, wouldn't it, at the end of it, when you start talking about it? So it is absolutely normal for someone to start off in one direction, pick up another career, and so on and so forth. And this idea of lifelong learning that John talked about and Bob alluded to, absolutely essential. But what we hope young people will become is people who have got the skills to learn. And we all keep on learning through our lives.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Glyn. On that note, and with an eye on time, I might just quickly wrap up. Now, I think sometimes we manage to just give a last word to everyone. I don't think we're going to manage that in 2 minutes, especially given the panelists. But I know, Laura, do you have any advice in particular, if you want to share a final few words with people?
Sorry if I can just manage to unmute myself there. I guess, like, my thoughts are just to echo the sentiment everyone else has shared, that careers don't need to immediately start at that post-16 leaving school. I left with A levels and had genuinely no idea what direction I wanted to go in my life. It took me till 30 to figure it out. So I guess just that reassurance of it's all right if you don't know right now, but there are just so many options out there for you just to explore and find your feet. Eventually you will find your fit.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Laura. With that, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who's watched along today. And if you're watching sort of on repeat, as it were, I hope you've enjoyed it as well. I'd just like to give a special thanks to our panelists this evening for giving up their time and insight. So yeah, thank you to Bob, Ian, Liam, Glyn, John and Laura. I hope I've not missed anyone there. And thank you for giving up your time. Just a few notes as well. Obviously, we've already noted the Thank You Teacher Day, and I know the council has been pumping out things on social media, so thanks to all teachers out there. Also, happy Reserves Day, and I know the council has many staff that are reservists, and if you are reservists in the city, obviously thank you for everything you do. And I know the council this morning re-signed the Armed Forces Covenant for the second time. And also happy Pride Month. It's great to see so many businesses and stakeholders in the city joining Pride. And even though we can't have a massive party on the Naves Mire, I know we are doing our bit to celebrate Pride. So thank you ever so much. Please do take a couple of minutes if you can to just glance through the consultations that the council are doing at the moment. There's lots and lots of big things going on in the city, from our big conversation to the York Futures survey. So do, if you have some time, maybe over a glass of wine in the evening, leave your comments on those consultations. They're all posted on the council's website. And you can continue leaving your comments and questions in the chat on Facebook Live, even long after this has ended. And the brilliant team at the council, the communications team, will try to get back to you within 24 hours. Final thanks go to Tom and Kat, who are the brilliant people behind the scenes. So you can't see them, but they're working away, keeping all of this on the road. And thank you for everything you've done. I think we'll leave it there. So thank you to everyone who's tuned in, and I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, Darryl. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.